Assalamualaikum and hi to everyone. Thank you for watching this video. So in this video, we'll continue on another topic. Topic 2, preliminary investigation and system analysis. Okay, part 1. So in the previous chapter, we already learned about the introduction to the system development. And now we go to the first part, which is referred to the preliminary investigation before we able to come out with the information system. So in this topic, you should be able to describe the step in a preliminary investigation and the end product of the investigation. So what are the steps? Try to identify and try to learn about the steps that are needed in order to do the investigation. Second, describe the system analysis, piece activities, and the end product of the system analysis piece. So means at this in this topic, you should be able to identify what kind of the activities involved in this system analysis piece. And then for the third objective, use the fact-finding technique, including the interviews, documentation, reviews, observation, and questionnaire. Okay? When you do the investigation, you should know what are the steps involved, what are the activities, and some of the activities might be the interviewers, the review on the document, observe on the current situation. So that's are the activities involved in the preliminary investigation. So these are the objective. Okay, after you know the step, you know what are the activities, what you should do, then you can continue to do the investigation. Okay, so preliminary investigations is like a spy. You need to investigate. So why we need this piece or these activities? Okay, first, to study the system request. When we want to develop system information, so you need to know what to do, what are the requirements. So in order to identify that part, you need to do the investigation. Second, to recommend a specific action. Okay, after you study based on the requirement, then you can recommend, you can suggest, make a suggestion to the request, to the problem that have been mentioned. So you investigate and then you can recommend to your stakeholders or your users. Okay, you need to put yourself as the developer, system developer. So in order to develop a system, you should know what are the requirements and you should know what you should suggest to your customer client. Okay, so these are the main objective. Study the system requests and give a recommendation to the specific action within the specific action. Okay, preliminary investigation is to study the system requests and recommend the specific action. Okay, so how to study? So you can make a study or investigation through the fact finding. Okay, from the fact finding, you can know the problems of the current system, the opportunity that you can find from the problem, the scope, and the constraint. The constraint is about within the company itself or the others entities, entities that involve. Let's say you are the restaurant, and then it involves the stakeholders, it involves the suppliers, it involves the customers. So what are the project scope? What are the limitation of your system that you want to develop? What are the project benefit? by developing this kind of system, what are the benefit towards the users, towards the management? Okay, you should know that part. You should identify based on the preliminary investigation. And then you need to do the estimation on the time of development and cost involved in order to develop the information system. So when you do the fact finding, then you can make a report to the management. Based on the preliminary investigation, you can make decision either you want to proceed or you want to reject that project. Okay, that is the important of the preliminary investigation. Okay, these are the steps. Okay, the first objective of this topic, we want to know the step. So the first step, you need to understand the problem and the opportunity. First step. Second, after you able to understand what are the problem and what are the opportunities there, then you define the project scope and the constraint. What are the scope? What are the features? Means the scope of your project, mean in terms of the functionalities of your project, in terms of the technology that you want to use in your project, in terms of users of your project. Okay. Example of a scope, you want to develop a system for the senior citizen. So your system is different if you want to create a system for senior citizen compared to create a system for the kids. Okay, that's why the importance of the project scope. And then how about the constraint, the limitation? Okay, you should know what are the limitation, including the limitation of the time base, including the limitation of resources that you have, including the limitation of cost. Okay, step 2, identify the project scope and the constraint. Step 3, perform the fact finding. Okay, fact finding, analyze the organization chart, do the observation from the current activities, conduct the interview with the related person, do the read the documentation, do a review on the documentation, the manual, the vision of the company, maybe. Okay, the schedule of the employees. It depends on what kind of system that you want to develop. And then do the observation. Let's say the problem is about inefficient on taking order in the restaurant. So you need to do observe how the waiters take order, how customer do the order, what what are the activities involved in the current system that lead to the problem, and how you want to solve the problem based on your knowledge. Yeah, so you need to study and get the data and get the fact about that. So that's why you need to do the observation on the operations. However, it's not all the fact finding activity that you need to do. Means it depends on the situation. Not all the activities you must do. Yeah, for example, if you want to develop a system that just need you to do the interview session, so you just can do the interview session. It depends on the system that you want to develop. Okay, and then step number 4, analyze the project usability, cost, the benefit, the schedule data. After you know all the facts, then you need to do the analysis on the usability of your project, of your system that you want to develop, about the cost, the benefit, the schedule of data. You need to do the timeline. Is it okay? Is it not okay? Okay, you need to do analysis from the fact that you gather in the steps 3. Number 5, evaluate the feasibility. Do the feasibility study, conduct the feasibility studies. In terms of the operational, the technical part, the economic, the schedule. Step number 6, present the result and recommendation to the management. So based on that part, you can make a suggestion, make a recommendation. So preliminary investigation in under the step 1, understand the problem that and the opportunity. Okay, for new system analyst. Okay, usually the one who conduct this kind of investigation is referred to the system analyst. Okay, it's not the task for the programmer, but the task is for the system analyst. So system analyst need to do the analysis on the system. So system analysts might need to develop a business profile that describe business process and function. For minor changes or enhancement on the current system, let's say you already have the system and then you just need to do minor changes or enhancement, improve your current system. System analysts need to understand how those modifications will affect the business operation and the other information that already integrated with the current system, with the current existing system. Okay, if you want to do modification on the current system by adding some additional features or use additional technology, okay, let's say for this let's say for example, uh at the plus highway we use touch and go. So before this we just use tag. Let's say we use the technology RFID, then you want to change to the um, NFC tag, or you want to change to a wireless uh, Bluetooth or so on. So you need to study the effect of that changes to the operation of your highway. Okay, that is one of the example. Okay, step 2, define the project scope and constraint. The project scope, defining the specific boundaries of the project. Okay, what are the boundaries? For example, type of user, the boundary of the project. Example here. Okay. For general statement, payroll is not being produced accurately. Okay, payroll, system of payroll is not being produced accurately, means there is some effect on the amount of money, for example. So project scope, overtime pay is not being calculated correctly for production workers on the second shift at the Shah Alam plant. So you know that it's not the total payroll, but only for the overtime payment. Specific, the scope is about the overtime is not being calculated correctly for production worker. So specify on the overtime payment toward who? Toward the production workers. Is it all the production workers? No, it's only for the second shift of production worker. To the entire plant? No, it's only at the Shah Alam plant. So that is the scope. Specific the boundaries of your project. Yeah, this part is very important because later on when you do the FYP, you need to bring this kind of mentality when you come out with your project scope. Okay, another example, modify the account receivable system. General, what kind of account, who use the account, for example. So the project scope allow the customers, so customers, you want to allow the customers to inquire online about account balance and recent transaction. So you know that part. You want to allow what type of user? Your customer to do account balance and recent transaction. So it's more specific on the boundary of your system that you want to develop. Okay. How about the constraint? Okay, just now we talked about the project scope. The next part is about the constraint, requirement or condition that the system must satisfy. Okay, a constraint can involve the hardware, the software, the time, the policy of the company or organization that you work for, the law. Okay, let's say in Malaysia, you cannot allow the driver less than 17 years old. So you must make sure your system do not uh bercanggah with that law. Do not bercanggah with that law. It depends on what kind of system that you want to develop. So you need to aware about the hardware, the software, the time, the policy, the law, and the cost. So example here, you want to develop ordering system. Order entry system must accept input from 15 remote sites. So that is the constraint. Okay, must accept from 50 remote sites. New web must be operational by 1st of April. So that's the constraint of in term of the time did. Okay. So these are the things that you need to uh, investigate, identify at the preliminary investigation step. Okay, another step, perform the fact and finding. So during fact finding, you might do the analysis. In terms of what kind of thing that you can do analysis. Okay, first you can do the analyze the organization chart. Okay, to understand how department function and identify individual you might want to interview later on to gain more knowledge, to gain more information later on. So the first, let's say you want to develop system, management system or delegation system. A delegation system from the top to the people, right? So you need to know uh, how many measure, what kind of, how many level in order to delegate the authorities, for example. So that's the things that you need to know. And then conduct interview. So based on the organization chart, you already analyze it, so you know what people, who are the one who responsible for certain area. Okay, let's say you want to make a payroll system, so you need to talk with the HR, you need to talk with the account, finance departments, and so on. Then from the organization chart, you can proceed with the interview session, conduct the interview. Okay, what else? You can do review the documentation. Okay, let's say the policies of your of the companies, the contract between the employee and the employers. So review to investigate the current system documentation or the manual of the current system. Let's say you want to modify the current system, so you need to know what are the how the current system works. So you need to review the documentation and then observe the operation. See how workers carry out typical tasks. Depends on what kind of system that you want to come out. Do the observation, identify how the process work, get more understandable about the process. Then you can translate or transform from the activities operation to your business information system. And then conduct a survey. This one in order to obtain information from the larger group of users or people. Okay, maybe to identify what the customer like towards the current system in order to change the colors, the font, and so on. Okay. And I believe about the conduct survey, most of you already have the experience to answer the survey from the customer service, for example, from Celcom, DG, and so on. They do conduct the survey in order to identify either the system are good or not. Okay. Step 3 done. And then the next step is step number 4. Step number 4, do analyze project usability, cost, benefit, and schedule data. So develop time and cost estimate for the requirement modeling task for system analysis piece. Okay, consider what information should be obtained and how to get the analyzed. Will you conduct interview on survey? How many people you want to interview and how much time you will spend for it? Okay, how much will cost to analyze the information and prepare a report with finding and recommendation. So these are the tasks that you need to do in the step number 4 when you do analyzing. Okay, the next step number 5, you need to evaluate the feasibility or conduct the feasibility studies. Okay, the first is about the operational feasibility. A proposed system will be used effectively after it has been developed. So it depends on several issues such as, will the system result in a workforce reduction? If so, what will happen to affect the employees? And will the new system require training for the users? If so, is the company prepared to provide the necessary resource for the training for the current employees? And do legal or ethical issues need to be considered? Okay, you need to evaluate the feasibility study on that part. And does the development schedule conflict with the others company priorities? So these are the things that you need to care in order to develop your system. Evaluate the feasibility in terms of the operational. Okay, done with the operational feasibility study, then we go through another part that we call as the technical feasibility. So this part is still under step number 5, feasibility evaluation. So technical feasibility refers to the technical resources that needed in order to develop, purchase, install, and operate the system. What are the resources, the technical resources that we need in order to come up with the system? So we must consider the following point. First, does the company have the necessary hardware, software, and the network resources? Means the technical part. If not, can those resources be acquired without difficulties? So we need to do estimation on that part. And then, does the company have the needed technical expertise? Do we have the expertise in order to deal with the information system? If not, can it be acquired? What the things that we can do in order to get the expertise for the technical part? Okay, and then will the combination of the hardware and software supply adequate the performance? Here we need to talk about the hardware and software to clear with the expectation and performance specification that exists. Okay, this one in terms of the technical studies of the feasibility of the technical studies towards the development of the information system. Okay. Then with technical operate, then we look also on the economic part, economic feasibilities. So the projected benefit of the proposed system outweigh the estimated cost in terms of the cost in terms of the financial. Okay, you need to estimate the cost, people including the IT staff and the users of the system, the hardware and the equipment required, the software, the training, the license, the services, the fees, the maintenance, the consulting expenses, and the facilities cost. So those are costs, either tangible or intangible costs, you need to identify, and then need to assess the tangible, the benefits too, towards the company or the economic feasibility. And then tangibles mean benefit that can be measured in RM, in dollar. Okay. Decrease in expense, increase in the revenue. How much? Okay, how much the numbers is can be measured. Example, a new scheduling system that reduce the overtime payment. The management need to know the numbers. Okay, so you need to tell them about the numbers. Is it decrease or is it increase? Decrease the expenses, increase the revenue means the profit is more. Okay, online package tracking that improve the service and decrease the need of clerical staff. So that's are the kind of things that you need to identify, measure. Okay, tangibles, you can see that. Okay, you can see that you can uh you can measure it based on the numbers. Okay, how about the intangible costs? Intangible advantages that are difficult to measure in RM, in dollar, but are important to the company. Okay, important but not measurable by money. Example here, user-friendly system that improve the employee job satisfaction. The job satisfaction of your employees cannot be measured by the RM, by the money. A sales tracking system states suppliers supply better information for the marketing decision. In terms of the data you gathered from the system that you develop, then you're able to create another knowledge and do another things, maybe about the marketing decision and so on. So it's also the value in terms for the economic part. Okay, and a new website that enhance the company reputation also need to be considered. Okay, the next part we have schedule feasibility. So a project can be implemented in an acceptable time frame, not to rush in order to come out with the system. Must consider the interaction between time and cost. The more longer that you need in order to develop the system, the more cost that you need to pay. Okay, so that are the interaction between the time and the cost. And other issues that are related. Can the company or the IT team control the factors that affect the schedule feasibilities? Has the management established a firm timetable for the project? Will a project manager be appointed? That are the schedule feasibilities in order to run the project. Okay. Done with the step number 5. Then the last step is step number 6. Present the result and the recommendation to the management. This one is in terms of the report. When you already go through step 1 until step number 6, until step number 5, then you come out with a report as the output of whatever activities that you did. Okay, the previous part, then you need to come out with the report and present it to the manager, to the management. So the reports should include the evaluation of the system requests and estimate costs and the benefits in terms of the RM, and case for action, summary for the project request, and specific recommendation. So that are the 6 steps that really necessary for the preliminary investigation. So the next video we'll talk about the system analysis, then the activities. Okay, so that's all for this video. Thank you and assalamualaikum.